So, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. I am Joan Benz. I'm the program coordinator. Sorry for the. Before we begin, I would like to note that the information in this presentation is for educational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. Our information is intended to empower individuals, their families, and healthcare professionals who want to collaborate in the most effective ways on this journey to health and well-being. Please see a licensed and qualified medical professional for your medical needs. So thank you for joining us for Brain Health 101, Preventing Cognitive Decline workshop. I'd like to introduce our speakers. Myra Oney is a certified holistic health coach. One second, sorry. Why is this? I'm terribly sorry for my interruption. Myra is a certified holistic health coach, certified brain longevity specialist, and Reiki master teacher. Nancy Crosby is a national board certified life, health, and wellness coach. Both Myra and Nancy are coaches for our foundational coaching program groups, and Myra will be coaching our new Maintain Your Brain coaching program, which you'll hear about later. Thank you, Myra and Nancy, for joining us today.
Great. Thank you so much, Joan. So let's go ahead and get started. And so just really briefly, for those of you who may not be familiar with Sharp Again Naturally, I wanted to talk just a little bit about who we are and what we do. So Sharp Again was begun about 10 years ago by two health coaches with a mission. And their mission was to begin to educate, empower, and support people to take an active role in maintaining their brain health through lifestyle changes. Now, 10 years ago, this was really cutting edge information. We're happy to say that it has become much more mainstream now, but that's how we began, and that continues to be our mission. And one of the things, we do this, we make sure that all the information that we give you is scientifically based. In other words, there has been scientific research to show the efficacy of lifestyle changes in brain health. And we also take a multi-therapeutic approach, which means that if you're having memory issues, it's probably not just because of one particular cause. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. And we have a vision, of course, and what we envision a world where dementia can be prevented, treated, and reversed, and where everyone has the ability to remain cognitively healthy throughout their lives. So in other words, the ability to, if you start having memory issues, that there is a way, and it's a very clear way, that you know that you can prevent it, and it can be treated and reversed. And instead of going to a doctor and having them say, oh, there's nothing you can really do about this, our vision is that, oh yes, there is something we can do. So what you're going to hear about today is what is normal aging versus cognitive decline. What can you do now to stay sharp? This is something we really want you to come away with. What are some of the root causes of memory loss? Excuse me. What are some of the root causes of memory loss? So, what are some of the root causes of memory loss? And here we're talking about specific lifestyle changes that may be at the root of some of the memory issues that you may be having. And we really want you to leave with one or more action steps, okay? Things you can take away with you, something you can start doing tomorrow to start improving your memory and your cognitive health. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between dementia and normal aging, because dementia is not part of normal aging, even though traditional medicine might have you think that. It's really not. However, there are some things that are part of normal aging. So in normal cognition, there are no detectable changes in cognition, either through testing or by yourself or by your family. You don't really notice there's anything wrong, but you may be experiencing just some simple forgetfulness, maybe some delay or recall or slowing in recalling names, dates, and events. And this is a delay. It's not that you completely forget it. You may just not have it right at the tip of your brain. You may have trouble finding words in a conversation, like the words right at the tip of my tongue, but eventually you get it. A little bit of slowing in processing speed or problem solving, and maybe some challenges with multitasking. And frankly, multitasking, there are many, many reasons why pretty much everybody has trouble with multitasking. And it's also normal. It's also important to understand that this kind of gradual slowing actually begins when you're in your 30s. But at this point, normal cognition, there's nothing going on that's something that is really bothersome to you. Subjective cognitive impairment. So this is where there start being some brain changes, but they're not measurable symptoms on a test. You may begin to start noticing that something is different, that something is kind of off, but the doctor doesn't, and probably your friends and family don't either. So that's where, but really you are the one who's starting to notice. And this is the perfect time to start taking charge of your brain health. It's right when you first begin to notice it. So the next stage is mild cognitive impairment. And this is where changes are starting to really concern you and your family. You notice it, your family notices it. You may be regularly forgetting appointments and conversations. You may be regularly misplacing items, having a real problem focusing and learning new material. And you're often forgetting the names of family members or friends. And you may also be struggling to complete tasks that you were used to doing, such as balancing your checkbook, shopping, driving. And actually, one of the first things that people notice is with driving. You may be driving somewhere and you suddenly completely forget where you're going, or you may be going someplace that you are accustomed to going to, but all of a sudden you cannot remember how to get there. That's a sign. That's a sign of cognitive impairment. And once again, at this point, there is still time, there's still an opportunity to make changes. The last stage, and there are actually many stages and many steps in here. But the last and final one is dementia. And this is where cognitive impairment over time becomes severe enough that it interferes with your everyday ability to dress yourself, to feed yourself, to go anywhere without assistance. That is the more severe stages of dementia and Alzheimer's disease. So let's just take a look here. We're going to look at the same information in a little different way. We're looking at cognitive decline on one side and aging on the bottom. And once again, so normal aging, everybody ages differently. You may notice absolutely nothing different in the way that you're thinking, or you may just be noticing, yeah, I'm slowing down a little bit. A little bit of processing speed is declining, but you know what? I can still function just like I always have. The next stage is preclinical, and this is that subjective cognitive impairment where nothing shows up on a test, but you're starting to see that maybe things are, you're noticing a difference. Okay, you're noticing maybe a real gap in your memory, or that you really cannot recall names and people's faces and appointments. But still, you're noticing it, but nobody else is. Mild cognitive impairment is where it starts to show up on testing, and also where you and your family are starting to notice there's an issue. And then from there, it goes to moderate and severe dementia. But the one thing that I want you to really know about this graph is that at pretty much any stage here, it is possible to delay, slow, or stop the cognitive decline. So in other words, if you start feeling your memory going down a little bit, it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to take that deep dive. There's always something that you can do. Okay, Nancy.
Thank you, Myra. I'm sure over the years, we can think back to a situation where somebody was dealing with dementia for a loved one. And, it used to be that the medical community would typically say, there's nothing we can do. Or they might have said, there's this medication that isn't going to change the course, but it might delay what's going on. But there wasn't a whole lot of promise. And it was sort of like we got dealt this hand of cards. And sometimes we were told to go home and get our affairs in order, or your loved one in any case might be told to do that. And human nature, it just makes sense that would lead to emotional feelings of fear, wanting to deny it, not wanting to address the situation. Naturally, we would want to wish that it would just go away. And then sometimes when, there's something that's difficult like that, we tend to want to isolate so that we don't have to share that bad news with others. And isolation has its own concerns that come with that. Now, the good thing is that today there's hope. Many people are living longer. And we have the field of epigenetics, and epigenetics are teaching us that our living circumstances play a role in our outcomes. Well, what does that have to do with things? It allows us to be focused on being personally proactive and taking a prevention approach to our health and our wellness. We do know now that there are many contributing causes of memory loss, and treatment to prevent and potentially slow its progression is now available, and we play a role in that. And sometimes we can even reverse the course. All right, now, before you'll see this little worksheet, and this is really valuable. So as we continue through the presentation today, I'm going to invite you to, if you've printed this, to use it. If you have it pulled up on your computer, use it. And if you don't have it, just grab a piece of paper and a pen. Admitting somebody here. Okay. So one of the things we would like to invite you to do today as part of your experience here is to develop one or more action steps. When you consider making changes to move toward a healthier lifestyle, what comes to your mind? I invite you to do a little bit of brainstorming. We're not having any specific structure here. There's no right or wrong. We're just asking you to take what comes up and pops up in your mind and throw it on this piece of paper. Then later on, after we get farther down the presentation, we'll come back to this, and we'll take those ideas and notes that you've written down here, and then carve out an action step for you to move you into the direction of taking a step toward a healthier lifestyle and a healthier brain. Okay, thank you, Myra.
Yeah, okay, so let's talk about some of these lifestyle factors for brain health. And as Nancy says, as we're going along, just make notes for yourself, because in just a little bit, we're going to ask you to put all this together. So what are some of the lifestyle factors for brain health? So here you see, these are many of the factors that we talk about in our small group programs. And these are what I like to call the low-hanging fruit. Okay, these are things that you can go to work on that can make a difference for you and your brain health. And the first one is sleep. So sleep 7 to 8 hours a night. Once again, everybody's different. You may have a different chronotype that may have you sleeping, going to bed earlier, getting up earlier, later, whatever. But basically 7 to 9 hours per night of sleep is extremely important. And we're going to go a little deeper into these in just a minute. Nutrition, vegetable heavy nutrition in a Mediterranean type diet, a Mediterranean or mind type diet, basically lots of vegetables and low on saturated fat, refined carbohydrates, and sugar. Exercise, 180 minutes a week, which really breaks down to like a half hour a day. Aerobic weight training and stability exercise. These are, doctors have said, if you could put exercise into a pill, you wouldn't need any other kind of medication. Exercise, extremely important. Mental activity, learning new skills, hobbies, and brain training, something like Brain HQ, but also just learning a new skill. Learning to play an instrument or a language is usually brought up as something that can be very helpful in mental activity. However, if you're not interested in doing either one of those things, that's fine. Just learning something new, taking a class in something you're interested in will really stimulate your brain. Reducing stress with meditation and stress management techniques. Spiritual connection is also a great way to relieve stress, and is once again can be a big factor mentally, emotionally, and physically in your health. And being socially active, having a strong support network, having people to share things with, having people that you can go and visit, people that you know that you can depend on, even if you consider yourself to be an introvert. Being socially active, having one or two close friends and things you enjoy doing, very, very important in aging in a strong, positive way. I just wanted to, we're going to talk a little bit more about those lifestyle factors and what you can do about them, but I just wanted to also, Sharp Again Naturally, we have a list of different possible causes of dementia. And these are some of the other causes that we talk about on our website, and you can also go to our website and download the Roadmap to Wellness, and it talks about all of these things. Just wanted to bring them up for you very briefly. I call these the other causes to consider in a multi-therapeutic approach. Remember, we talked about that at the very beginning. So let's say that you...
Myra, can I interrupt quickly?
Yeah.
I have messed up the slides, and I'm trying to figure out what I did wrong. Could I just interrupt for a bit and see if I can fix this?
Well, while Joan does that, I thought, I don't want to interrupt you, Joan, but while Joan looks at that, I just want to point out the fact that what's really nice about the things that we're talking about today is that many of them are things that we can do they're for free. They're just different decisions and different small choices that we make that can have a huge bang for the buck. And in this case, many of these things, like I said, we don't have to have any cash outlay, which means we have lots of power to make changes.
Well, that's a good point, Nancy, that the low-hanging fruit, I'm just going to... How you doing, Joan?
I have no idea what I have screwed up here.
All right, so I'm assuming that I'm going to let Helen in, that people can see the slides.
I don't know, because Carol, can you see the slides?
I think we can all see the slides.
You can. You're not
Yes.
just seeing Myra and okay.
No, we're seeing the slides.
Oh, good. Okay. I am so sorry for the interruption. I am not the best facilitator today.
Hey, this seems to be a day with some technical things going on and telephones and everything else. So anyway, thank you all for hanging in. And we'll go ahead with what we're talking about here. So other causes to consider in a multi-therapeutic approach. So let's say that you have a great diet, that you exercise, that you have your stress under control, all the things that we were talking about earlier, but you're still having issues. These are some other things that you might want to consider. You might want to consider that you may be exposed to toxins in food, water, air. This would be, food that has been sprayed with pesticide. If you live in an area that has poor water quality or poor air quality, or if you have mold in your home, which is a big one that can really cause memory issues, then you might want to take a look at toxins. Hormonal imbalances. Most often, this would be imbalances in your thyroid. This is something that obviously a doctor would need to test you for. Inflammation from low-level infection and other sources. So this would be things like dental infections that you don't even know you have, especially if you have had a lot of root canals. Uterine tract infections, UTIs, especially in older people, can look very much like dementia. Once again, something that you would need a doctor to test you for to see if you have any kind of underlying infections. Heavy metal toxicity. So this would be toxicity from mercury, mostly from mercury and lead. It has been shown that if you have those old mercury fillings, mercury can leach into your nervous system. If you live in an old home, you might be exposed to lead. Also, these things can also be found in water and in air. Trauma, both physical and emotional trauma. So this would be things like if you had a head injury. Childhood trauma we're seeing now that childhood trauma is things that happen in childhood can affect you throughout your life and can also affect your memory in later life. And of course, emotional trauma. Once again, these are issues that you would need a licensed medical professional to work with you on. The effects of medication. So once again, really working with your doctor or your pharmacist, if you were on a lot of medications and you're noticing an effect from them, or you're noticing that you're having memory issues, this is something that you might want to go and take them all of your medications and say, I just make sure that there's not a conflict or there's not a side effect that you don't know about that could be affecting your cognitive health. And then the last thing is stress. And here we're talking about prolonged chronic stress. Okay, so we're talking about stress that doesn't go away pretty quickly. So it's not like the stress of being late for an appointment, but it's the stress of, usually this is, it can very well be financial. It can be a change in health. You may become a caregiver, but that kind of chronic ongoing stress. So these are all other things that we wanted to just let you know about. And also, quite honestly, these are things that if you have a strong system, if you follow a healthy lifestyle, then the effects of these things will not be as strong, but they are still there. Okay, Nancy.
Thank you, Myra.
Thank you, Myra.
Oh, am I echoing? No, it's okay. All right. So what we'd like to do is dig in a little bit deeper into some of these areas. And while this information may not be new to you, I'm going to ask you to listen from a new perspective. Think about things in a new way and find out if you connect, if you're drawn to a particular area in which you might like to make a change. So the first topic is food. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
The first topic is food and nutrition. And a simple concept is to eat the rainbow every day if you can, or as many colors of the rainbow as you can every day. One of the ways we can do that is to seek out the food that comes in nature's packing, which means we're going to avoid packaged foods, meaning boxes and cans and bags of food. Typically that means the perimeter of the grocery store, or shopping at a farmer's market. Those brown paper bags are okay. Okay, the next is to think about considering a Mediterranean diet and a plant-based diet. These things are easy to follow. The Mediterranean diet does allow for some meat, and then also includes healthy fats. So one of the best things you can do, but perhaps one of the hardest things to do, is to cut the added sugar. It is so hard to do, but makes such a big difference. So even if we just make little steps and think about if we're adding sugar to our tea or our coffee, or maybe we're drinking soda, think about either reducing or cutting that out, or maybe giving yourself a curfew, like no sugar after a certain time at night. Another thing to look for is the amount of white flour that we have in our diet. And very often we don't realize it until we start to look at it. And then when it becomes part of our focus, we start to see it with a lot more clarity. So pay attention to that. This would be pastries, pasta, breads, things like that. And then another concept to think about is, two things that people don't like to be messed with are their food and their relationships. So here we're asking you to consider messing with one of those two. But what I invite you to do is rather than, if it's comfortable for you, rather than taking something away, think about adding something healthy, because we're more likely to be open to adding something than depriving ourselves. So when it comes to food, think about maybe starting whatever you're going to eat, put something healthy in your mouth first. That's a simple place to start and see how that works for you. The next topic is hydration. This is also very simple, but very powerful. And many people really struggle with this. Nutrition involves getting the nutrients into our cells. We need to get them to the parts of our body that need them. And water helps us do that. It helps us get the nutrients into our cells. And equally important, it helps get the toxins out of the cells. In fact, when we look at something that practical perspectives, it's not uncommon that a headache is due to dehydration. So if you ever find that you have a headache, try drinking a glass of water and then wait a while and see if that helps. The next topic we have is fasting. And in this, we're talking about a 12-3 lifestyle, and it starts with a 12-hour fast overnight. Well, what does that mean? It means that from the time you put your fork down after dinner, not including snacks at night, but from the time you put your fork down after dinner to the time you eat again is at least 12 hours. So let's say you go to bed typically at 10:30 at night. This would mean you would stop eating after dinner. Let's say that's 7:30. So that would give you 3 hours of fasting between the end of dinner and going to bed. That 3 hours gives your body time to digest the food that's already in there and then be ready for restorative and cleansing and reparative sleep. And what that means is that when we don't have the food in our body can be working on restoring and detoxing while we sleep. When we fast, it also helps us improve our insulin sensitivity, which is a big deal. All right, so one word of caution. If you have any blood sugar issues, you don't want to enter into a fasting lifestyle without first consulting your medical provider. So please make sure to do that. All right, thank you, Myra.
Okay, thanks, Nancy. So the next thing, Nancy, great segue into sleep. So really the rule of thumb is that we need to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. And this does not necessarily mean 7 to 8 hours of sleep in time in bed, because you will almost inevitably be awake for a portion of that time. So we're talking about getting 7 to 8 hours a night of sleep. And as Nancy was saying, it's so important because during sleep, the major thing that happens when we're sleeping is our body has the opportunity to detoxify. And that means that our brain detoxifies. And one of the things that is paired out is beta amyloid plaque, which is one of the big indicators of Alzheimer's disease, is a concentration of beta amyloid plaque in your brain. Also, of course, without sleep, we feel tired, irritable, and less able to cope with stress. So things can seem more stressful for us. Reduces the ability to clear toxins and plaque, yes. Also, one of the things that can happen if you don't get enough sleep is that you may find yourself becoming clumsy. You may find yourself much more accident prone. And one of the things that obviously we all want to avoid is having falls that can result in broken bones and a lack of mobility. So getting 7 to 8 hours a night of sleep is extremely important. When whatever period of time, whatever hours it is that you sleep best and that you are best active, that is 7 to 8 hours a night. Okay, next is exercise, cardio resistance and stability. So what does regular exercise do? Well, it promotes a strong flow of oxygen and blood to support the formation of new brain cells, and it can actually improve memory. Now, one of the most common forms of dementia is a form of dementia that happens when you are not getting enough oxygen to the brain. So it stands to reason that exercising, being mobile, is one of the ways to prevent vascular dementia. And the other thing, of course, is that it's so important to stay mobile, because if you're not mobile, then it's much more difficult to be socially active and to basically be able to take care of yourself. So exercise can be many, many different things. Okay. It doesn't mean that, oh, you have to go to the gym. It can be, lots of people love to play pickleball now. I hear many people talking about playing pickleball, which is great because it requires you to, to be able to move, to be active, to be balanced, and also you play with people. So you're being socially active as well. Obviously, walking is a great exercise, and it's free. There are many, many videos you can find on YouTube now that help with yoga, Qigong, Tai Chi, as well as different strength exercises. Very important to do strength training. It's very important for your bones because strength training actually strengthens not only your muscles, but your bones. And there was a study that was done with, just to test how important is it to do strength training and what is the possibility of actually making a difference. And there was a woman who was part of the study who was 93 years old. And even she was able to significantly build her bone strength and muscle mass. So the other thing about exercise, it's never too late to start. Number 6, and by the way, there are 10 points that we're covering here. So number 6 is challenge your brain. So the brain develops neural connections when we learn new information. All right, this is neuroplasticity. We used to think up until the 1990s that you were born with all the brain cells and the neural connections you were ever going to have, and that has been blown out of the water. We now know that absolutely our brain is able to develop neural connections, and we have control over how that happens. And when we develop new neural connections, we're also building up what's called cognitive reserve. Now, cognitive reserve is when your brain is able to make these new connections to go around a part of your brain that may have stopped functioning as well as it used to. But it just says, it's like taking a detour, right? Oh, we can't go this way anymore, but we can go this way, and we still have that ability. So challenging your brain, exercise, sleep, all helps you build cognitive reserve. And once again, kind of with cardio, do what you will do what you enjoy doing, do something that really, do what you will do what is in your ability and your interest to do. Okay, Nancy.
All right, Myra mentioned pickleball being a form of exercise and also social connection. And it is found that our overall health really depends on our social connections. That could be friends, family, groups with people of common interests. And it's also found that social isolation is linked to dementia. In fact, I learned recently that there's something called hospital-induced dementia, because often when somebody's in the hospital and they're alone, they lose connection with that day-to-day life and the people and the things that bring them meaning. Fortunately, that is quite reversible, but nonetheless, it shows the impact of how important connections are for us. Now, for some people, connecting with people in groups is completely outside of their comfort zone. If that's you, you might want to think about how you approach that topic of getting out of your comfort zone and try to find some groups that you can connect with. And I'll tell you, one great way to do that is to think about volunteering, because the great thing about volunteering is there's something for everybody. You can volunteer for a one-off for an hour, or you can get involved in something that gets to be a full-time job. You get to choose. So that's just one idea. Next, we're going to move on to stress. We know that there are a couple different kinds of stress, the good stress that keeps us out of temporary situations. And that's the key. It's a temporary situation that is a reflex of our body to keep us safe. You're late for an appointment, or you step off the curb and a car comes and you jump back on the sidewalk, and that keeps you safe. The bad stress is the kind that doesn't go away. And what that causes is inflammation, high blood pressure, weight gain, anxiety, digestive issues. You get the point. Chronic inflammation can lead to chronic disease. So it's really important to address that chronic stress. Great ways to do that include meditation, Yoga and exercise is like the golden star. When you're moving, it is, and you may have heard the mantra, just keep moving. Exercise is really wonderful in whatever form that you like, that you will do. Also getting into nature is fabulous, as is music. What happens when you do things to bring down your stress is that you're activating the parasympathetic nervous system: rest, digest, restore, repair. Okay, moving on. Then we want to think about the time urgency of this. Start now. The sooner we start, the sooner we can make changes, and the more time we have to make those changes. And of course, the easier it's going to be to accomplish them, because we are that much more on top of the ball game. When we make changes, one of the things that can prevent us from making changes is that we might feel that we're not successful. But it's important to accept and acknowledge and embrace the fact that it's not a straight line. For all of us, we make success. We have a few steps forward and maybe 1 or 2 steps backward. And that's just part of the process. And that's also why the sooner we start, the more time we have to make changes. What's one of the things that we can do? Well, we can set an example by modeling healthy habits for those we love and care about, including our family and friends. Now, sometimes they may not be receptive to hearing our mantras or what we want to encourage them to do, because they're on their own schedule. So all we can do is model it for them, and then maybe they'll be willing to listen to what we're doing. But hopefully we're planting a seed and reinforcing what's already in ourselves, but planting that seed in the people around us that we care about. And then finally, we want to be able to create change that we can continue and that we can maintain. And that's part of setting goals that are realistic. So we'll be getting into that shortly. Thank you.
Okay.
All righty. So here's our little golden nugget for today. How can we apply today's information to our health? Well, what I would invite you to do is take those notes that you've been making throughout the presentation today and see if there isn't something that pops out of there as one major health-related goal that you would like to make for yourself in the next season or the next year. And think about that. I'll give you just a little bit of time to pull one of those out. Maybe you want to change an old habit that just isn't supporting you anymore. Maybe there's a new goal that has been on your bucket list that you would like to incorporate that will support you.
And maybe that's something that you heard about today that reminded you of something that you've been meaning to do, or something that you'd like to just start experimenting with. And try to make it as specific as possible, because the more specific a goal is, the easier it is to achieve.
And in our conversation just a little while ago about having time to do things, having something that has a time frame around it is very helpful. Also thinking about, we take several steps forward and a couple steps backward. We want to have an overall time goal for the big goal, but then what we're going to do is we're going to break that down a little bit. So as you pick out your goal, your overarching goal, we want it to be specific, time-bound, and something that is doable. It's realistic. So our call to action: what can you change or begin to do to start moving in that direction? Have you thought about your health in a way as something that you have some control over? So let's say you want to lose 40 pounds in the next year. Let's say by Christmas, right? A lot of people are having these goals for the holidays, or maybe you have a wedding coming up or something like that. Well, one of the things we know is that when we lose weight, we have benefits in other areas of our lives. It's not just what the scale says. We know that we're helping our body and our overall health. So we're going to put let's say you have 40 pounds as your measurable goal. And what are some of the things that you might be able to do to move in that direction? Maybe one of your goals is, I want to be able to walk 3 miles 3 times a week. That's a lot to chew if you haven't been doing any walking at all. Maybe your goal is, I want to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep at least 4 days a week. That's a lot if we have really poor sleep hygiene. Well, let's think about some things. Let's pull out the one about sleep. Let's think about 3 things you might be able to do, and we'll just throw out some examples here. You might consider no screens in the bedroom. You might consider turning off your Wi-Fi before you go to bed. Perhaps you could read or meditate, do some relaxing yoga. You might journal. You might take some time to review your calendar for the next day, which tends to reduce stress and help sleep as well. Perhaps you would give yourself a food curfew. You could start increasing the amount of time after you finish dinner before you go to bed. Maybe 3 hours, like we talked about before, is a big chunk, but maybe you can start with 1 hour. You might also consider giving yourself a media curfew. Instead of watching TV or looking at your phone up until it's time to go to bed, you might play or listen to some relaxing music. Maybe you play music, maybe you could do that. You might enjoy a foot bath while you read and really relax before you go to bed. In any case, something that's pleasant and calming. So what are the 2 things that you might be able to do to help you reach your goal?
We would absolutely love it if you would share in the chat box what your goal is, and if you like, what your action steps are to achieve that goal. We'd love to hear from you.
And something to think about as you ponder what your options are and what your goal is how would your life be different if you did make these changes? And also, what would your life be like if you don't make the changes? And then finally, do you think you'd be more likely to make these changes with the help of a small group, where you might have some peers, some people who are going through the same thing, and have some discussion and some dialogue and some mutual support?
Yeah. Joan, I can't see the chat box. Do we have any comments?
Not yet.
Okay. All right. So take this information, take this worksheet, and really consider what are some things that you could possibly do to help move yourself just in one area towards a healthier brain, to have a healthier brain. And this kind of work that we just did is actually what we do in our small group programs. And we'd like to talk about that right now, because making these changes can be very difficult, but when you have the help and support of a small group and a coach, it can be much easier.
Yeah, so our group programs consist of, it's sort of a hybrid. We have group coaching sessions where we have a group of people up to about 6 participants or so. And then beyond that, we book those group sessions with a private one-to-one coaching consultation or a coaching session. So we have 1 private consultation prior to the 6 group coaching sessions, and then we have another one that's a follow-up. And one of the reasons we do that is at the beginning, there's so much out there. There's so much we can learn and address, but we want to know what specifically our participants are looking to do and looking to accomplish and what they're interested in, so that we can make our effort to incorporate that into the group sessions. And then at the end of the group sessions, we have this follow-up one-to-one to see if we were able to help you accomplish what you wanted to accomplish, but also to help determine whether you are set up in a way to move forward. And that might be some goals that you have, or it might be revisiting some of the opportunities that Sharp Again offers. Like we have the free webinars, and we have another program that's beginning for people who have participated in the foundational program, so that we can continue the power of being part of a group. And truly, that's a huge part of Sharp Again, because there's so much information out there on the internet that if we want to, we can go and dig up a lot of stuff ourselves. But really, one of the most powerful things, as I said, is being part of that group and understanding that I am not the only person going through this situation or having these feelings. But then you'll also find that as we move on in the 6 sessions, that the group really gels and people start to share things with one another, and it just becomes just a huge asset. So the program is fabulous. If you have any questions, please be sure to ask us about it.
So we do have 3 foundation groups open for registration now. Our next session begins in April, only 2 open spots at this point. And our deadline to register for that is April 5th. Our June session is scheduled for early evening, 7 p.m. Eastern time. This will perhaps help accommodate those who have late workday endings or who live in earlier time zones. The fee for our foundational program is significantly subsidized by the generosity of our Sharp Again Naturally donors. The cost of the program is nominal compared to the $450 actual cost, so an enormous value. As Nancy mentioned, we are launching our new Maintain Your Brain coaching program. This program is designed for graduates of our Stay Sharp foundational coaching program. In those programs, we spend time making sure everyone has a basic knowledge of the topics of sleep, stress, nutrition, and exercise. We talk about goal setting and give participants the tools to begin to create healthy lifestyles and make changes that will positively impact their brain health. In the Maintain Your Brain program, we focus on coaching and support rather than the information to help keep your momentum, or if you've lost some of that momentum, we will help you get back on track. As part of the coaching program, connecting with a buddy and having the Facebook group will help participants maintain their progress between the monthly coaching sessions. This program also has optional private 20-minute laser coaching sessions. These once a month sessions will give you the opportunity to address your specific concerns with your coach. Also wanted to update you on our 2 more webinars in our winter spring series. On Wednesday, April 19th at 1:00 p.m. Eastern Time, Dr. Penelope McDonald joins us again for Better Food Equals Better Detox to do a deep dive into diet, discussing both specific foods that positively impact our ability to detox and those that impair the process. On Friday, May 26th at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Lisa Snow, a certified personal trainer and founder of On the Mend Customized Fitness and Massage, will join us for Fit Body, Fit Brain. Regular exercise promotes a strong flow of oxygen and blood to support the formation of new brain cells and can actually improve memory. She will outline how to get started, take up a new routine, and for those who are already active, how to take your routine up a notch or 2. I will include program details, links to more information about it on our website in my email with a recording link that will go out by tomorrow afternoon.
Great. Thank you so much, Joan and Nancy. Oh, wait a minute, going the wrong direction here. Okay, so we really truly hope that if any of this has resonated with you, that you will consider joining one of our small group programs, or if you were a graduate, joining our Maintain Your Brain program. We would love to see you there. We'd love to help you in any way we can, to really to find a way that you can maintain your brain health. So some next steps would be, when Joan sends out the links, to possibly go and register for one of our programs, sign up for our email list, join or refer someone to one of our programs. And also, our programs, our organization is run on donations. So if you feel that you would like to, we'd love to have you donate to some of the beautiful work that we do. And the other thing is that, I mentioned earlier on our website, we have a download of a PDF that's called Roadmap to Wellness, and it covers all of these things that we talked about today. So if this information is new to you, or even if it isn't, that's a great thing to do. That's a great document to have so that you can take a little deeper dive into this. So we'd like now to take any questions that you may have. You can go ahead and type them in the chat box. And
We don't have any yet.
okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing.
Mhm.
So does anyone have any questions?
You can unmute yourself if you like.
Yep, you can also just unmute yourself and ask a question.
While we're waiting for that, I think, you know, one of the aspects of Sharp Again naturally is that we put things back on our radar, and they're right under our nose at times. So a lot of things in life, you know, we know that they may be beneficial for us. We know about them, but doing something about them is another story. So that's, again, one of the benefits of participating in the Sharp Again programs, is to really take those things that we know that are on our bucket list, or you know, on our radar, and make sure that we do something about them. Oh, there's somebody asking to unmute. So Joan, I have popping up on my screen is Alyssa Jenny asking to unmute, but I don't seem to be able to have the ability to unmute her on my end.
Alyssa, you have to unmute yourself. There you go.
Okay. But I didn't have a question.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Well, I think that about wraps us up.
That wraps us up.
Yep. I will also include a link to the download for the roadmap in my email tomorrow. And one last request is, if you have any topics that you would like us to cover in upcoming webinars, please feel free to share those with us. We always like to have feedback from our community to know what's on their minds and how we can help them.
Great. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We hope that you found this informative and helpful, and we hope to hear from you.
And if anyone would like, please, in the chat box, let us know what one of your goals might be, what was a big takeaway for you today. That would be great to see.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been wonderful and inspiring, and just what I needed.
Mhm.
And I will be following up on your great ideas and what works. Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. I am going to stop our recording.